Well, good afternoon, everyone. I hope everyone's having a good Iconoclast. I'm thrilled to be joined now by two media titans reshaping the media landscape, live sports, and entertainment. Bela Bajaria, Chief Content Officer at Netflix. She has been a driving force of Netflix's bold expansion into formats and markets, helping position the company at the forefront of global streaming. And Mark Shapiro, President and Managing Partner of WME Group and President and COO of TKO. His leadership spans billion-dollar media deals, sports innovation, team building, and much more. Together, they have redefined the nexus of sports, entertainment, and global media. Thank you both for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us. Thank you.
So let's jump right in. Bela, you've been at Netflix for nearly 10 years. You're at the helm of an $18 billion content budget, overseeing everything from original series, films, global programming, and now live sports. What's your take on the media landscape right now?
Hi, and thanks for having me. And I'm excited about talking, to talk about some film and TV. Hopefully you watch Netflix and a lot of it. So I'd say the interesting thing for me, even in the 10 years, and if you think about just how much even at Netflix has changed in that time. In 2016, we started the Unscripted group, and then we started doing a local language show in 2015. And then we sort of expanded, local languages around the world. And then not that long ago, got into live events and doing some sporting events with the NFL games on Christmas Day and the Tyson Jake Paul fight. So it's been like an interesting, obviously, 10 years, and we've changed and grown and really sort of expanded around the world. But I think for us, what's always important and the most fun part about my job is, we're a subscription business. We're as good as, we know that audiences and our members want lots of different things. They're in lots of different moods. They want movies and TV shows and live events and unscripted and doc series. And I know you watch a bunch of them too. And so for us, it's all about just great storytelling and understanding that people watch lots of different things. And I think if you just look at yourself, you sort of understand when you're in the mood for a certain kind of thing. And so I think for us, looking at when I look at kind of the media landscape, it's really about you really earn the audience's time every single day.
So what are you finding, though, that consumers want to consume right now? There's been a huge evolution, right, over the last 10 years. So
look, I still think, it's so funny to me because people will talk about, short form or long form or where you find something and what does it look like. And I still think in the end of the day, when we make something great, that's what people want to watch, right? When we just did a show recently called Adolescence, it consumed conversation, is now the #2 biggest show on Netflix. And again, that started from a really authentic place and a real thing going on, in the UK and sort of what impact that had kind of with storytelling. So I still think the thing hasn't changed with audiences, right? Sometimes you're in the mood for a comedy, sometimes you're in the mood for a drama, and sometimes, and if you love something you watch, right, there's so much conversation and recommendation. Mm-hmm. You probably do it, hopefully you do, or your friends do it, like, you have to watch this thing. And so I still think it's not about this quick fix of it's this kind of thing or that kind of thing. It really is, if you make something, it's kind of, if you build it, they will come. Mm-hmm. And we see that, all around the world in different languages.
Yeah, that's so interesting because you're in so many international markets. What are you finding as a follow-up to that, a quick follow-up, how people are consuming content?
So we have 27 country offices in Netflix. We have local teams who speak the language, who are from those creative communities all around the world. We make shows and films in 50 different languages. And to me, the whole thing is still about cultural specificity. The most authentic, culturally specific thing is the thing that resonates in that country and also can resonate globally. And so I'd say that, I think even if you look at our top shows, you can go from Squid Game to Adolescence to Stranger Things. It's a wide range of things. But even in all of those countries, our French team in Paris makes all kinds of shows and movies for our members in France. Like, that's what they're doing. And people want to see their lives reflected that way.
I found it really interesting watching some recent Netflix interviews that really the things that have been going viral and hearing from you and Ted are the things that are the most authentic to the local communities.
Yes, and I think it's because people always say, oh, do you make global things? And I just think if you make something for everyone, you make it for no one. And so we don't make global things. We make very culturally authentic, specific things. And that's where it resonates, because those things are universal and those themes are universal.
So Mark, you've had a front row seat to the transformation of sports and entertainment, from ESPN to Dick Clark, now WME Group and TKO. What's the biggest shift in how you've seen audiences, especially younger ones, consume and cultural content?
Well, I would say the largest shift is really that, especially younger audiences, they're not just consuming content, they're actually creating content. So they are active participants, especially when you look at all the social media and the short form platforms, they're active participants in that creator economy. At the same time, remember, you have 75% of millennials and Gen Zs that are watching television while at the same time on social media. That's the way they consume it, very different from yesteryear. Platforms are also very agnostic. So I think as you look to the future of entertainment and these shifting dynamics, you're going to have more personalization, more customization, more interactivity, and frankly, more and more kids really coming out of high school and being creators, being a central tenet of that creator economy.
So connecting that further as like a global macro theme, what does that tell us about where entertainment is heading?
Well, I think right now, there's nothing, I mean, Bela, notwithstanding Squid Games and Adolescence, which is off the charts good and extremely viral and also very sad but real, it's storytelling at its finest. There's no storytelling that's more singular than sports right now. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've been in this business for 35 years across every pillar of culture, from Hollywood to fashion to music to sports, and sports is having its moment, if you will, and likely not to go away anytime soon. And I'll tell you why. The reason for that is because when you look at sports or live events, the event itself is very certain, but the result is very uncertain.
That's such a good point.
Right?
Yeah.
And when it comes to television, or let's just say movies and sports, at the core, they're about emotional transportation. That's ultimately what it's about. Having said that, they're very different in the sense that if you're watching a movie, you are a passenger. And if you're watching sports, you are a participant. Totally different. The outcome of sports is incredibly unpredictable, right? The audience actually feels like they have an impact or a say in the outcome. And frankly, with rooting interest and booing and cheering and home court advantage, they actually do. The movie, there is no different outcome. In fact, audiences own the experience when it comes to sports, right? The outcome could be different every single time. In a movie, the outcome isn't going to change unless you're going back to 1985 and we're going to see the movie Clue, right? I mean, that's really where that's headed. And I would venture to say that, as you walk down the road of sports and kind of where it's all going to go, it's the last bastion of unifying content for us. Mm-hmm. It brings us together, rooting interests and rivalries and stars and storylines. It ultimately brings people to the table, and there's an element of FOMO to it, because right. Young audiences, they don't want to miss out. They don't want to not be there. They want to be the first to tweet about it, and that's why you really have 50% of, again, Gen Z and millennials that say they're going to subscribe to an SVOD that has live sports. Like, that's the game changer for them. Mm-hmm. And the last thing I'd just say is that there's a whole human aspect to it, right? It comes down to storytelling, and when you have sports, you have good versus evil, and you have resilience and survival, you have redemption and revenge. And these are all themes that resonate with audiences because they are really characteristics of the human experience.
And I say both are, but I think what's interesting is I think both are important, right? Because sports, great characters, ultimate soap opera, real stakes, you don't know what's gonna happen. I still say in a movie or a TV show that really surprises you and is very immersive and you get transported, right? And again, you're really taken somewhere, and hopefully what we do sometimes is also surprise you where that story takes you. But I think it really is both. Definitely there's the real sort of even continued growth of sports, which is interesting, and the growth of women's sports, which I'm really excited about. So I think that's there, but I also think audiences want that, and that is like, you know, a great experience watching sports and having that. And also, sometimes you want a TV show, and sometimes you want a movie, and sometimes you want to have that shared, you know, I'd argue Stranger Things, when this comes out at the end of the year, is going to be a gigantic shared experience also. But I think both are really interesting. But I think it's been on the sports side for us also, it's been amazing to do everything from the storytelling of sports. So everything from David Beckham to Tour de France to Full Swing.
Court of Gold.
Court of Gold, so
Obsessed.
good, so
Yeah,
good.
so good.
You should watch it if you haven't, it's really great. But to be able to do, you know, something like Drive to Survive, which getting behind the sport and really connecting to the characters ended up growing the popularity for the drivers. And we've seen it time and time again. When we do, it's gotta be great, no magic with mediocre, but if we do great storytelling behind the story of the sport, behind the scenes, and it really resonates, and it's been great for the athletes, and it's been great for the leagues, and it's, you know, it's grown the sport and grew, you know, Formula One because of sort of that connection to Drive to Survive. So I do think sports has so many interesting aspects and the storytelling of it.
Look, there's a place for all of that variety, clearly, and Bela's, I think, elegantly talking about all the options at Netflix, where you get a one-stop shopping platform. That's the reason why we went there with WWE, because we knew there were 300 million subscribers. We knew it was growing. We knew it was global. But, you know, at the same time, when you look at F1, you know, I used to run ESPN programming there, and, you know, you couldn't get a subway token, you know, with F1. I mean, nobody wanted to be, you know, really watch F1. It was at odd times. They didn't know the characters. They didn't know the stories.
Price ticket is high too.
Original production wasn't there. This show really did everything for it because it humanized the athletes. It gave you a rooting interest. But look, there's a place for all of it. I mean, when you look at TVs and movies, that's a big part of our business at WME Group. So in no way, shape, or form do we not want that to proliferate and grow and movies to come all the way back. But what they all do together collectively is they really create a gap. So whatever your challenge is in life, whatever your issue is in life, whatever problem you have, you go into a movie theater or you go into a live event and you come out of that and a certain gap was created to give you a moment to kind of reflect and put in perspective that issue or that problem you had. And that's really escapism at its best.
And those are such good points. And it just harkens back to 2 years ago. We had Lewis Hamilton and Toto Wolff on this stage, right? And there was such a huge demand to see them. People standing outside in line. And I'm not sure, to your point, if that would have been the case 2-3 years ago. But I was talking to Toto ahead of that and also after that about Drive to Survive. And you said, okay, season 1, they didn't participate, but there was such great demand, and seeing all the human aspects of the storytelling, they felt that they were compelled to do that.
Let me tell you, Netflix really, you know, and I would say this with or without Bela, they changed the landscape on that, because what it's about is access. In order to tell those human stories, in order to get behind the scenes, in order to really bring out the authenticity, you need access. And in running ESPN all those years, it was impossible to get many leagues, I won't name them up, but I'm talking the majors, they were nervous. You might hear something they didn't want you to hear, a story they didn't want you to tell, something that put them in a bad light, and they wouldn't give you that access. Hard Knocks kind of started that with NFL Films and HBO, but then Netflix took it to another level, and now everybody wants to be mic'd up.
Right. I want to make sure we get to the WWE deal, because that is kind of, you know, is the big beacon in the room. The $5 billion deal between Netflix and WME. How did that deal come together? Tell me the story.
How did it come together? So look, So even when I was younger, right, so I would watch WWE with my grandfather. And so I understood as a fan the kind of multi-generational, you know, following, you know, Andre the Giant and Hulk Hogan and all of these characters, and kind of what it meant, and it's always had a very loyal audience, and it's moved from different networks, and that audience has always followed it, right? It's a long storytelling, long soap opera, amazing characters, multi-generational, and an incredible brand. I mean, and they do an incredible, Triple H and the whole team, they do such an amazing job actually with those stories, and really, again, it's amazing storytelling, and it had all the things we like: drama, great characters, good storytelling, big soap opera, like it has all of that. And Mark and I met about it, and again, I had some kind of, obviously as a fan, some inclination of obviously what it was and working in the business, but really went through the data, the audience, what it really represented, and I think, Mark can talk to their side of it, but this idea that you would have, WWE Raw, 52 weeks a year, right, weekly on Netflix, but also have it globally, right? The first time that it was going to be globally distributed around the world. People click it there, and there it is, right?
And this is the first time it's not a one-off, right? Like NFL Christmas Day.
Yes.
This is your first experiment into weekly live sports.
Yes, and that was
Quasi sports.
Quasi sports.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Quasi sports. We don't want to tell everybody it's not real in case they don't know.
Don't tell Ted. Don't tell Ted it's sports.
Don't tell. But it was, so that was a different, it was this long-term partnership, and it wasn't just a one-off kind of event in that way. But we also understood the opportunity to grow it globally. We love the multi-generation, right? It's been kind of this PG family show for, a long time. And, we knew that, again, for our members, expanding into that kind of, also, that programming, was great.
Look, for us, they're not going to be reporting subs on a regular basis anymore, but we know that they have over 300 million subs. We know that they're global. We know that they have the right demos. We know that it's a first-stop shop. So we're going to get a lot of casual fans, right, that are going to go to Netflix to see what's on tonight, or I heard about this new series. Oh, WWE. Oh, The Rock. John Cena. I'm going to watch that. So for us, it was a no-brainer, especially when you look at the international markets. So we're distributed, right, in 150 different countries, 20 different languages. Mm-hmm. And we have staggered deals over the next 3-4 years. And Netflix approached it with, we'll wait until those deals are up and we'll add the countries as they come on. So for us to have all this live entertainment all at once happening around the globe with one partner, one marketing strategy, that was something we couldn't pass up.
It gives a lot of control back to the situation. But
totally, and let me just say this, not to embarrass Bella, but I will say this. Aside from her team being very bright and smart and strategic, and they really grind you on all the details when you're doing a deal.
In the most lovely way.
Yes, exactly. Loving, and they feed you grapes, and it's all that.
Yeah.
But you needed to be bold to do something like this, right? You needed to be daring to do something like this. You needed to have courage to do something like this. When we first sat down, Bella was like, hey, I want to play in this space. She wasn't really ready to bite off all the Raw episodes week to week, nor the premium live events, which sort of like a pay-per-view we do every month globally. But as you got talking, and then she stretched her mind and started talking about the what ifs, and you know what, let's go for this. And so selling that story, if you will, inside of Netflix so that they could really see the grand vision, she was the vision keeper.
Well, what was the inflection point then? What convinced you? Because what I also found super interesting was listening to some Wall Street analysts talk about Netflix's stock, talk about the WWE deal, and give the reference point that when WWE was on TNT or other networks, the huge jump, like there was a loyalty to the market, to your point. But when it got onto Netflix, the reach totally expanded. So talk to me about, as you were evaluating that.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it was, first of all, is like, we have to start with anything we do is a great storytelling, right? And obviously you look at how long it has been around and consistently held that audience, how it was multi-generational, and we first started that. Then it was like understanding, like we understood obviously the scale of the audience, but the opportunity with having global distribution. The opportunity that somebody in India is going to wake up, even if it's not on there when we do it live, it's not really in their, a great time zone for them. They wake up, there it is, right on, they turn on Netflix and it's right there and they can catch up and click play, and just that easy access, the global distribution. Having also, we have, the catalog, the older episodes when people actually have such fan favorites, they go back and watch it. And so it really started with like, you know, TKO, WME, like great partners. We have a lot of business together. And that was some, you know, it's like we're going to go this long-term partnership together. We have to have a great relationship and trust, understanding what they wanted to do, what we thought we could do. And we really did see a path there. And I do think we were all excited that we could grow it globally, and we have. And it is, you know, it has been, you know, just, and you can get the core fans, and the core fans will follow WWE, which is great. We also wanted the core fans, but knew that we could also expand that.
Mm-hmm. And it wasn't all, even though it was a great deal, I think for both of us, financially, it worked. There were so many other elements to driving that deal. If you look at the Netflix business model, growing subs, right? Reducing churn, launching AVOD, bundles that may or may not come in the future. Those were all areas that we could be part of the solution. And from our side, stretching our brand, new audiences, casual fans, one destination for appointment viewing, they were able to solve that for us.
Well, it sounds like a match made in heaven. So Bela, I want to broaden it up to live sports at Netflix. As you bring more and more live sports and big entertainment events onto Netflix, how do you think about the creative opportunities that come with live formats?
So I love the idea, right, for us to be able to do live events. And when we say live events, we don't mean, you know, just sports. You know, obviously we have, you know, SAG Awards, and then we've also obviously done the boxing matches, NFL on Christmas Day. But when Tadoom just happened. But when we do NFL on Christmas Day, we do that, and then Beyonce Bowl, right? So how can we still bring that, you know, entertainment part? Can we do something that creates a ton of conversation around something? Can we do something? Look, at that time, that was the largest streaming game the NFL had. And so, you know, it was like, again, we still want to bring that audience. We still want to bring lots of different aspects of storytelling, you know, around it, or add entertainment like Beyonce Bowl. So it's a really interesting, just other place that we can expand. You know, producers will call us, rights will become available. There'll be specific, look, I was very excited about doing the Women's World Cup in 27. That was, you know, this kind of one specific tournament that we could, you know, have the rights to in the US. And it'll be interesting, what's all the storytelling before that, during it, after it, and how do we do that? So I love the idea of live events. It's not just sports for us, even though we love sports. I'm a big sports fan, you know. And so, you know, I think it's just broader than sports for us, but I love that idea for the audience of, look, I love the idea of surprising them with the Jake Paul-Tyson fight, right? And we're gonna do other things like that, but it's just another kind of opportunity to surprise the audience.
But so far, the playbook predominantly has been these one-off events, right? The WWE deal is the first time that there's regularity throughout the year. Do you think that you might venture into some other types of long-term contracts, maybe with the MLB?
You know what? I think when we look at it, we're still looking at it. We're very strategic. We're very thoughtful about what that is. Very thoughtful about the $18 billion budget, which does act to make a lot of film and TV around the world, which is a very important part, crucial core part of our business. And look, and we talk to other leagues, and you know, and again, we're going to always be opportunistic. If there's a great opportunity that makes sense for both of us as far as what that deal is, and again, WWE made a lot of sense for both of us, and so I'm always going to be sort of open to, you know, what that.
And as a rights owner, that was part of the strategy for us. We want to know that you're not getting into the volume. If you're going, like your business, your volume and diversity of programming is everything that's on Netflix, plus the localization and local content. Like, that makes a lot of sense in these one-off events. That's exciting to us. You're going to do a Tom Brady roast. That's exciting to us. You're going to have a F1 Drive to Survive series. That's exciting to us. You're going to do NFL on Christmas Day. You're going to do a Mike Tyson fight. You're going to do other boxing events that are, you know, coming up. That's exciting to us. Once you go into the volume business, well, then we're not such a unicorn. So for us, we want to have that kind of special attention, and we know from a marketing perspective, because there isn't volume, they'll go out of their way to push us as tentpole events.
Right, because the unique value proposition diminishes.
That's
so
right.
We're just about out of time, but I want to ask a final question. What do you see as the biggest threat or potential blind spots to each of your businesses or to the media industry broadly?
Look, for us, I mean, depending on where you're going, I mean, WME Group is, you know, our representation is a big business across content and Hollywood, and music, and podcasts, and books, et cetera, et cetera. I think Hollywood is obviously in its own, it's squeezed right now, right? It's more and more from an agency standpoint, it's a commission business, certainly as it relates to television. Movies are still kind of fighting their way back. And you just got to be able to play with the best and the brightest and the experts in all these areas that are relevant to people. The good news is, even with the challenges going on from a macroeconomic perspective and inflation and tariffs, the consumer still wants that escape. That consumer is not back working 5 days a week in the office. Generally, if you're lucky, 4 days. So they have more discretionary time. They're not afraid to spend discretionary dollars on something that's live, communal, shareable, and ultimately unpredictable.
Bella?
Yeah, and I say for me, it's always, there's a lot of like, is it short form or people watching this and doing that? And look, and we've always had, competition, but again, for me, it's always gonna be like, how do you earn people's time and attention? Like, we're a subscription business, so, and doing that around the world. And I also think sometimes people look at kind of competition in a very narrow way, right? We're still only 10% of viewing time in a lot of the countries around the world against linear. So for me, it's always just kind of continuing. I think it's easy to get distracted by a lot of shiny things out there, or, ooh, aren't people doing that? Aren't people doing that? Maybe you should go do this instead of that. And I think for us, still being really disciplined and focused on that, we know that our members want these great titles. How do we continue to do that? Not take any of it for granted and just know, like, literally you're as good as your last thing that you did. And how do you continue? To me, it's always how do you continue to take risks and do kind of that next bold thing and not ever get derivative? And so that is always continuously, I think, the thing to push ourselves to.
You have to keep investing.
Right.
Whether you're a sports team or you're not.
You have to invest.
When you hear that they've gone from 17 billion to 18 billion, like, they're not going to slow down. They're not going to let the environment compress them, because that's when somebody else is going to come take over. So you have to figure out a way to stay lean, if you will, but at the same time, not take your foot off the pedal on growth.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, Bella, Mark, thank you both for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.